Today we will talk about Ukraine's 40-day Force to Peace campaign and the strategy everyone missed. This was major hit of Mikhailovsk from Stavropol Krai region of Russia, by the way. Yesterday, on July 15th, was the 20th day and today's 21st day of Ukraine's 40-day operation to push Russia to peace. As far as you remember, Zelensky gave Putin an ultimatum, and he said that this is a 40 days to push Russia towards peace. Ukraine is expanding its attacks on Russian forces with new strikes on the Black Sea ships and a rare FPV drone takedown of an attack helicopter over Belgorod. Ukraine's recent strikes are not random. They are part of a broader strategy designed to increase the cost of continuing the war. In this update, I examine Ukraine drone attacks on Russian oil infrastructure, the situation in Crimea, Russian tanker losses and logistical challenges, the political and economic effects inside Russia, why these events might be more connected than many people realize. Hello there, I am Elena, welcome back to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Please forgive my accent, English isn't my first language. I am former associate professor of several Russian universities, and now I am a Canadian writer and traveler, and I have been researching this war in Ukraine since 2014. So I collected a lot of information, facts, video evidence, which I provide on my channel. We have a lot of information today, as every day Ukraine is actually achieving a lot. This is from July 15th. Ukrainian forces destroyed a Russian Mi-28 attack helicopter in the Russian Belgorod region. Ukrainian drones attacked Engels 2 strategic bomber base overnight. This is Saratov region of Russia. This is not the first time Ukrainian drones attacked Engels. It's a valid military target and very important military base. But unfortunately, as the war is going on, it is inevitable that something else will be hit. This is, according to Asynth Astra, one of the drones hit apartment building, which is about 2 kilometers from the air base. And according to acting Bryansk region governor Igor Kovalchuk, a 15-year-old girl and her grandmother was killed in the shelling of the village of Suzemka, which is nearby. And another local resident was injured. And according to Russia, they reported downing 375 Ukrainian drones, which is... Putin lies all the time, so nobody knows how many and how many of them were actually downed. But one of the cities named here is Volgograd, it's my home city. This is Russian combat losses from February 24th to July 16th. 1,424,620 people and 1,340 in a day. This is dead, wounded and missing in action. A housefly typically lives from 15 to 30 days. Depends heavily on the temperature and the food availability. So Russian soldier apparently on Ukrainian front lives less than ordinary fly. Newly deployed Russian recruit, 20 to 35 minutes. This is what, according to John Radcliffe, former CIA director. The Ukrainian armed forces strikes on Russian tankers are being called the largest naval war in the last half century. And here's Lavrov, he's complaining about those strikes and saying that, oh, this is worse than piracy because at least pirates are taking the goods to themselves. And these guys just destroying it for nothing. And, oh, poor Russia, which is Russia attacked Ukraine. Ukraine is defending itself, and by doing that, by attacking those tankers, Ukraine is crippling Russian ability to fight this war. According to the Financial Times, drones have struck 147 Russian vessels in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea over the past 10 days. And this is Robert Magyar Brody. He is saying we can burn 121 ships or 221 ships. We can burn as many ships as Russia has. And Magyar was right. After spending a week clearing the Russians out of the Azov Sea, Ukraine has officially moved on doing the same on the Black Sea. And in about 12 hours, Ukraine already destroyed 20 Russian ships in the Black Sea. A stunning humiliation for a self-proclaimed naval superpower. For the first time since 2013, not a single Russian warship remains in the Mediterranean, not one. Moscow maintained a permanent naval presence there for 13 years, but this chapter appears to be over. Russian economy, the theme of another video basically. The Russian stock market continues to be obliterated on a daily basis. So, never letting up, now down in minus 45% in 5 years, while markets across the world have doubled in that time. Well, this is the life in a dictatorship, ruled by a mediocre bureaucrat, an idiot. This is what happens to the country when it ruled by dictator, incompetent and stupid. And Russian aviation is doing only slightly better than Russian economy. This is Su-24M destroyed in Saki airfield in Crimea. Please keep in mind that this is not Russia Engels Air Base we were talking about. This is Crimea airfield Saki. And this plane was taken out because it was preparing to strike Ukraine. Not anymore. Let me say a couple words about Crimea. So this peninsula, Ukraine is trying to, which is Ukrainian land, which Russia took from Ukraine illegally. And Ukraine is trying to take it back because it's important strategic place. You can listen, for example, to military experts. I'm not military expert, but for example, General Hodges is. This is very important strategic territory for Ukraine. And if you remember in 2022, when there was liberation of parts of Ukrainian territory, Liman, for example, and so on, parts of Kharkiv region and so on, the goal of the Ukrainian counteroffensive was basically chop Crimea off from Russia and partly destroy the bridge and partly cut off somewhere here by either Mariupol, Melitopol or Berdyansk. And several different experts were talking about it. For example, in this my playlist in this video. This is Ukrainian military expert Roman Svitan. And now he's saying basically exactly the same thing. That yes, they will liberate Crimea. Yes, Ukraine is now taking under the, how he call it, a fire control, lots of Russian oil refineries. For example, this is just a couple days ago, that was Bashkortostan in Krasnodar region, Krasnodar Krai, Salavat, for example, in Bashkiria. Russians drone strike different refineries, and almost every day Ukrainian drones are striking Russian oil refineries. And some of them, for example, in Russia, some of them in Crimea and Russian occupied territory. This is different oil refinery in Syzran, which is also stopped, halted oil refining because of Ukrainian drone attack. Drone strikes on Russian refineries became huge problem. In not only just crisis for the drivers of farmers, it's gradually becoming a problem for the state budget. You can read this, it's very important. Ukraine is crippling Russia's oil industry. And according to Bloomberg, Ukraine and its long-range strikes have pushed Russia oil refining volumes to their lowest level since 2005. Over the past 100 days alone, Ukraine has damaged 24 of Russia's 34 major oil refineries and struck fuel production facilities at least 50 times. Since the beginning of July, Russia's average crude oil processing has fallen to just 3.91 million barrels per day, more than 1.4 million barrels per day below last year's average. According to Ukraine's general staff, since August 2025, Ukrainian strikes have inflicted approximately $13.5 billion in losses on Russia's oil industry and have knocked out 42.74% of the country's total oil refining capacity. And this is by blood of Russia's war machine. Every damaged refinery means less fuel for military, lower export revenues, and fewer resources available to finance the invasion of Ukraine. This is one of the most strategically significant campaigns of the war, and its effects are becoming increasingly visible. As Roman Svitan pointed out, this is a part of Ukrainian strategy taking under fire control oil refineries in Russia. What it means, it's not just one-time strike on oil refinery. It means as soon as Russians fix it or something or try to put it back, it will be another strike, it would be hit again and again and again. People are already fighting for gas. And this is just the beginning. People are starting to create a fake kind of private gas stations, and they store that fuel and trying to refuel the cars. Police seized 4.5 tons of fuel here. Russians are already fighting for the fuel, creating a fake fuel tanks to fill up the cars and then sell it somewhere else after that. What is important here, not many people mention, it's not only that Ukraine now can hit the main roads going to Crimea and prevent Russia from delivering fuel. Ukraine hit tankers in Azov Sea and the Black Sea, for example. It kind of preventing Russia from delivering fuel, but this is not all of it. Another thing is, it strikes also energy infrastructure. This is exactly what Russia was doing to Ukraine for over 4 years, trying to freeze them in the winter and so on. There is a whole network of energy, of the power lines and everything, and destroying the key nodes of that infrastructure means that Ukraine trying to leave basically Crimea unsustainable, so people couldn't live there. And Magyar is encouraging Russians in a very, very rude manner, leave Crimea. And they should do it, because nothing they can do about it. They can't help Crimea. They will not be able to bring food, to bring fuel, to make electricity working. This is gonna be worse and worse and worse. So the strikes on energy infrastructure is very important, as well as the strikes on oil refineries, on ships trying to deliver, tankers trying to deliver oil to Crimea and so on. And the most interesting part of it is this is just a repetition. It's a practice. Crimea is a practice. This is what Ukraine will do to Russia and already started doing that. Crimea will fall, Kerch Bridge will be destroyed eventually, and Russia will lose the war. There will be no daily gasoline sales in Crimea and no fixed electricity schedule, according to Aksionov, the Russian illegal leader of Crimea. Some areas have been without power for 12 days. This is according to the insider. The lines are enormous, not only in Crimea but in all Russia. And the Russians are fleeing Crimea, some of them, and some of them still going for the vacation in Crimea. This is unbelievable. A sharp rise in diesel and bitumen prices has jeopardized seasonal roadwork, according to RBC. Contractors are asking the government for their assistance. So Russia can't even fix its own roads. But there are money to fight the war in Ukraine. Wholesale diesel fuel prices for Russian road transport companies increased by 75.8% in the second quarter of this year, while bitumen prices increased by 45.5% during the same period. But for Putin's regime, it's way more important so people didn't find out about the crisis with fuel and everything. Putin has allowed aircraft refueling companies and Rosneft entities to classify data of their operations amid the fuel crisis. So most effort is going on to continue the war and hide the truth from the Russian people and punishing people who are publishing the truth. There are lots of other attacks. This is, for example, Kerch. This is fire on a railroad station. And as it was reported, warehouses, trains, and apparently an oil depot along with an electrical substation are on fire. This is what I was talking about, heating electric system. If you want to know in details about Crimea, how it all happened, how Russia illegally took Crimea from Ukraine, there are 6 videos of mine and there is a video on Donbass. So you're welcome to educate yourself about history to know and find out for yourself and know for sure with video evidence that Russia attacked Ukraine. Apparently Russia is realizing something. The Central Bank of Russia performed a surprising act of patriotic realism by removing the map of Russia with the illegally attached Crimea from the 100-ruble banknote. Instead, the new design features the Central Federal District, successfully integrating "make Russia small again" concept into Moscow's monetary policy. When Crimea and other occupied territories return to Ukrainian control, Russian currency won't need an emergency redesign. It's already prepared for a new reality. Clearly, the armed forces of Ukraine influence Russia's economy so deeply that it shapes the very design of their money. What is Russia doing to Ukraine? Exactly the same what they did before. Overnight, Russian attacks on Odessa and Sumy killed civilians, injured children, and damaged homes and other civilian infrastructure. In Odessa, Russian missile strike killed 2 people and injured 8 others, including 2 children. So, this is what Russia is doing. They failing on the front, they can't do anything else, so they terrorizing civilians in Ukraine. This is Odessa. A hero city, which was a hero city, rewarded that title in the USSR for a heroism during the World War II. Russia's overnight ballistic missile attack on Kiev killed 2 people and sparked massive fires. This is Kiev, the Ukrainian capital. Russia is trying to make Kiev unlivable for people. This is Zaporizhia. Russia murdered 2 more people and wounded 9. This was a residential apartment building, the grounds of an industrial facility, and several vehicles were damaged. So when it hits, Russia hits apartment building, civilian building, we can see it very clear, no problem. Russia claims that they're hitting only military infrastructure, but they're lying and they cannot prove it. When Ukraine hit Russian military infrastructure, everybody see it. Big fire, big kaboom, everything. This is attack on civilians. And this is more about Russian airstrikes on Zaporizhia. It have killed 3 people and injured others, including a child. Another important news from Ukraine. So, Ukrainian government now had some changes and basically new chapter. So, it was newly formed cabinet of ministers in Ukraine and mass protests actually all over Ukraine because of removing of Mikhail Fedorov. These are the protests in Ukraine about dismissal of Defense Minister Mikhail Fedorov. You can see how many people, and this is during the wartime. I agree that Fedorov did fantastic job, and for the last 6 months, and it's too bad that he was removed, in my opinion. I'm not really a specialist on Ukrainian internal politics, so it's probably a theme for a different movie or different video. My point is that Ukraine is a democracy, and that's why in democratic society, if the people are not happy with what government is doing, and some of them are not happy, very much so, they protesting right now during the war. It's a mass protests, and nobody shooting them, nobody throwing them in jail, and so on, like in Russia. If one person will show up with an empty piece of paper on the street, they will be arrested and thrown in jail for many years. And Ukraine is a democratic country. Ukrainian people have the right to express their dissatisfaction with the government. Another illustration of the difference between dictatorship and democracy. The former commander of the 155th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces has been detained in connection with the murder of 2 brothers in the Kiev region. This is quite a famous brigade and quite heroic one. But there are accusations of murder, and this commander is detained, and there is investigation. So Ukraine, during the war, is conducting investigation because there is information about serious crimes committed. And the results will be known eventually. It was quite a big deal in Ukraine, and the Ukrainian public was very angry about this. This is another illustration of the difference between the dictatorship and democracy. If you don't know who Boris Nadezhdin is, I'll explain you in a minute. Boris Nadezhdin was arrested for displaying prohibited symbols in Russia. Boris Nadezhdin was a kind of candidate during Russian previous election when Russian people were really wanted to vote for just against Putin. And when he started, he was just basically a puppet figure which didn't really mean anything, until people started to really trying to give their voices to him. in the beginning to collect its signatures and so on for him before the election. Putin just removed him because he doesn't want any competition, but for some reason Russian Tsar, illegal Tsar usurper Putin, decided it's a good idea to create an illusion of elections. And even for that, they can't even afford, with completely fake elections, they can't even afford anybody to run against Putin, because what if they win? Belarusian Lukashenko already did that mistake, and Tikhanovskaya won. So Putin doesn't want to do that mistake again. So now Nadezhdin is arrested. He kinda released for now, but I really doubt in that fake elections which coming up. I don't see the point of even wasting time to watch any of this, because none of it is real. But this is important as just an illustration, the difference between democracy and dictatorship. It's kinda there is elections, just to show foreigners, look, we have elections. The USSR did exactly the same thing. Except they didn't have to arrest anybody. There was only one party and only one candidate in the USSR. In Russia, they're trying to pretend that there are several different parties and different candidates. There isn't. Doctors Without Borders. Russia is deliberately targeting hospitals in Ukraine. This is what, according to organization, more than 20 medical facilities supported by MSF has been attacked since 2022. And this is results of the investigation. Targeting medical personnel or transport is a war crime under international humanitarian law, the organization emphasized, recalling that 10 years ago, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 2286, condemning attacks on medical facilities, personnel, and patients. States with influence over Russia must use it to stop attacks on medical facilities, Doctors Without Borders demanded. More positive news for Ukraine. Since its June 2026 launch, Ukraine's Trophy Lab platform has received nearly 200 applications from foreign defense companies eager to study captured Russian military tech. Spain unlocks 570 million euros to mobilize corporate reconstruction in Ukraine. Thank you, Spain. European countries, together with Ukraine, have created a coalition to combat ballistic missiles. So, 10 countries signed the declaration in the Elysee Palace. And also the declaration notes that it remains open to the accessions of other European states. What a good idea. Even Donald Trump apparently said that the United States will give Ukraine a license to produce Patriot missiles. That would be great, but this will not happen soon. Finally, European Union has started to wake up to Russian hybrid warfare. The European Union imposed sanctions against VK, which is Vkontakte, Russian social network, and the state messenger Max, which Russian government is promoting and forcing people to install on their devices. It was because this is connected to the FSB. Because basically, as Russians call it, Comrade Major in your pocket. It's a spying device. And this is why, finally, the European Union, that kind of app and spyware, considered sanctioned now. The EU imposed sanctions on 9 individuals and 4 organizations for Russian cyber attacks. The FSB 16th Center was blamed. Again, good morning, European Union. Good for you, finally. Britain has declared IRGC, an Iran-linked group, and the GRU Volunteer Corps to be proscribed organizations. Security Minister Angela Eagle, in a written statement to the Parliament, said that IRGC linked activity involving threats to the life and intimidation on British soil has been identified in the UK. The law also included a volunteer corps of Russia's GRU, military intelligence, for sabotage and other activities directed against the United Kingdom and Europe. If you liked my videos, please like, subscribe, share, write me a comment. Let's make truth available for everyone. Please let me know in the comments if my accent is a big problem. Maybe I'll consider then using an AI to speak for me if my English is really bad and accent is really bothering you. Please let me know. I will appreciate that. Thank you for your support. My congratulations to an amazing YouTuber Jake Bro and NAFO 69's Sniffing Brigade. They finished their fundraiser. They were supposed to raise $1 million, but they raised $1,138,064.32 with 10,115 donations. Thank you everyone who participated. This is a big inspiration for all of us. This is what one honest American can do. Before this campaign I just talked to you about, he created several campaigns, 7 of them, and raised $8,397,000 with the help of 89,016 donors and with NAFO 69's brigade. Thank you, Jake Bro. Thank you everyone who participated in it. In the end, this is Russian refinery is burning in Salavat. And thank you for watching. Learn the truth and stay informed. Please help Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. See you later.